We are kicking off episode 498 of Monster Kid Radio with a version of the theme song from the Munsters. This cover of the Munsters theme comes to us from the Graveyard Rockers. It comes from their album Gravest Hits. It came out in September. They gave us the okay to play their music here on the show, so we're going to highlight that. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes so you can pick it up for yourself when you're done listening to this episode of the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear. My name's Derek M. Cook. Welcome to the show. Now, there will be another version of the Munsters theme played later on in the show, and I'll tell you about that when it comes up. If you can't tell, we're talking about the Munsters this time around, and specifically, we're going to be talking about a movie featuring the Munsters. The first time they were on the big screen, was it the only time they were on the big screen? Everything else was TV movies, I think. Munster Go Home is the movie that we're talking about, and when I say we, I mean we, because it's not just me. I'm joined by not one, but two fellow podcasters that have been in the podcasting game for quite some time. I'm talking about Joe Stuber from Comic Book Central and our guy, Scott Morris from Disney, Indiana. The three of us finally got together and talked about this really fun movie, but I don't want to play my hand too early. You're going to have to stick around to hear what we thought about Munster Go Home. Now, of course, Munster Go Home was covered in Famous Monsters of Filmland. Kenny's going to tell us a little bit about that during the Look at Famous Monsters of Filmland segment. And then Mark Matzke's here because I can't go a week now without getting some Ultra Kaiju excitement. He's got his Beta Capsule review. He is still telling us about Ultra Q episodes, and the one that he talks about this week is actually one of my favorites. So you're going to hear that as well, plus some listener feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up the Monsters in the Machine to get them ready to read those emails right after this.
Hey comic book fans, I'm Joe Stuber, producer and host of Comic Book Central, where each and every week I welcome a legendary talent to the Comic Book Central lair to talk about bringing comic books to life.
Greetings, true believers. This is Stan Lee.
When do you think the Academy is going to wise up and create a special Oscar category for Best Cameo?
I don't know. They're just asleep on their feet. Maybe your show, maybe this interview will be the turning point.
Hi, this is Jamie Alexander, the Asgardian warrior Sif from Thor. I went to Marvel. They said, hey, sit down, we want to talk to you about this part. So what happened was I had a knife in my purse. I set the purse on the chair and it fell off, and the knife fell out. And then they were like, oh, God, you really are Lady Sif.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the one, the only, William Shatner. There's all these rumors out there that you're going to be in the next Star Trek film.
Well, I'd like to be in it. You know, I don't want to be a gratuitous character.
Like scrubbing the windows on the Enterprise or something?
There's a guy on the wing.
Chris Pine! There's a guy on the wing.
Chris Pine says there's a guy on the wing.
Catch the very latest episodes at the website, comicbookcentral.net. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter, and be sure to join me each and every week for Comic Book Central.
This is John Rhys Davis.
Hi, everyone. This is Summer Glau.
Hi, this is Tricia Helfer, number 6 from Battlestar Galactica.
Hey, this is Dean Cain, Superman from Lois and Clark, and you're listening to Comic Book Central,
Where comic books come to life.
Excelsior.
C-3PO,
Loki,
Mace Windu,
Dr. Bruce Banner,
Captain Rex,
Venom,
Princess Leia,
Jean Grey,
Darth Maul,
Nick Fury,
Grand Moff Tarkin,
Captain America,
Lando Calrissian,
Cyclops.
What do all these characters have in common?
Well, 2 of them were played by Samuel L. Jackson.
A couple of them were played by Hammer Films veterans Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
Come on, guys. You know this.
Well, of course we do, Jessica. Just like Mickey Mouse and Captain Jack Sparrow, they're all now Disney characters. Hello, I'm Tracy of the Disney Indiana podcast, and my co-host Scott and I enjoy talking about all aspects of the House of Mouse, and that includes their newest properties, Marvel and LucasArts.
We also talk about Disney resorts, the cruise line, theme parks, and whatever else Mickey has to offer.
Which includes movies, Imagineering, video games, and collectibles. You'll never know what we'll decide to talk about.
So check us out at www.disneyindiana.com or do a search for the Disney Indiana podcast on iTunes, because now we've got a lot more to talk about.
And don't forget about those other quote-unquote Disney characters like, well, Sully,
Fozzie Bear,
Buzz Lightyear,
Link Hogthrob,
Doug,
Janice,
Merida,
Pepe,
Bruce,
Ralph the Dog,
Wally,
The Disney Indiana podcast. Even after 5 years, we're still miles away from the nearest Main Street, USA. We're not listed on the map, but you can join us at www.disneyindiana.com.
In the diabolical minds of the madmen of Mandorus was created the most incredible plot ever conceived to conquer the world.
Why did you bring us here, really? In a matter of hours, we will begin the conquest of the world.
Phil Day, undercover agent, trapped in the trap he set for the madmen of Mandorus. Professor Coleman, American scientist, believed his staggering discovery to be a secret.
Up to now, anthraquinine was the only known antidote. The loss or destruction of the formula for this antidote would mean complete annihilation of the world.
But he did not reckon with a group of evil men, men who will permit nothing to stop their rule of the world. What unknown force has been created to conquer the world? And which of the madmen pushed the panic button?
Somebody's got to get Vorak. I guess it's up to me, Casey.
Well, you're in the feedback discussion segment of the show, and I have an email that came in from friend of the show, Kevin Slick. Take it away, Monsters in the Machine. We really ought to give them a name, right?
Hi, Derek. I love the latest episode and can't wait to see that darkly surreal art house film, La Terreur Effrayante. Bravo to Dominique for recognizing the obvious hidden meanings inside bad B movies, or was that one a grade C or D? At least it wasn't Beast from Yucca Flats. That's usually my go-to movie for worst film ever made. Thanks for an enjoyable show.
Kevin, I'm glad you liked the show. Now, I don't know if my machine monster pronounced the name of the Creeping Terror in French correctly, so I went and I outsourced that, and I think we're going to get the pronunciation correct here.
La Terreur Effrayante.
I think that's right. As discussed in previous episodes of Monster Kid Radio, I don't speak French outside of so I don't know if that's right or not, but I would love to see a version of the Creeping Terror done with that kind of existentialist approach. And I did share your email with Dominique, so yeah, we'll see what happens. Thanks for writing in. I really appreciate it. Oh, and Beast from Yucca Flats? Yeah, that's a movie.
Coming to this theater soon, The Beast of Yucca Flats. One of the most exciting movies ever made. See The Beast of Yucca Flats.
Hi, Derek. This is Alan Trump out in St. Louis. Hope you're doing well today. Hey, I just wanted to give you a call because the topic that you discussed with Eric Martin a couple of weeks ago about old-time radio shows, that's really a topic that's close to my heart. One reason is I still have the Arch Oboler Lights Out Drop Dead album with The Dark on it in my collection, and that was the talk of my high school, even in the 1960s and 70s was that thing. So I like that. And it also brings me closer, brings back memories of my father who used to tell me about programs like The Hermit's Cave and The Whistler, which he really enjoyed. A couple other episodes I think people should check out that I've heard a lot about is something from a program called Quiet Please, called The Thing on the Forble Board, and the mysterious traveler behind the locked door. And I won't go into them too much, except they're pretty scary, and they kind of involve Lovecraftian horrors that come up out of the earth seeking human males for affection. Anyway, Mysterious Traveler was put together partially by Robert Arthur, who also wrote a lot of the Alfred Hitchcock collections like Monster Museum, or he edited them, Monster Museum and Haunted House Full and Ghostly Gallery. A really good book on the subject of horror radio programs is Terror on the Air from McFarland by Richard J. Hand. So, hey, great program. Looking forward to listening to Burn Witch Burn. Wanted to wish all you and all the MKR listeners a happy post-Halloween season, and take care. Hope everybody's staying healthy. Bye now.
Alan, it's great to hear from you, man, and I'm glad that you really enjoyed the Old Time Radio episode that we did a few weeks back. And I can't believe that I totally forgot about the thing on the Forble board. This was something that was recommended to me by, it might have been Scott Glancy, the man behind the Delta Green role-playing game at a previous Lovecraft Film Festival, as something that I need to check out and listen to. And yeah, it is incredibly creepy, and it hits all the Lovecraftian notes in just the right way. You're dealing with deep time. You're dealing with, well, it's only 23 minutes long, and if I tell you too much more about it, it's going to get spoiled. So what I'll do is I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes so you can go to quietplease.org and listen to the episode yourself. As far as the Mysterious Traveler show, the episode Behind the Locked Door, I'm not familiar with that, but just reading the description of that episode or that story that involves two archaeologists discovering a haunted mountainous cavern, it sounds right up my alley, so I have to check that one out too. And I did find that over at the Escape and Suspense website at escape-suspense.com. Again, link in the show notes. I tried to look up that book that you mentioned, Terror on the Air. I didn't find it right away. If it is through McFarland, there's a good chance that it's a little outside of my price range. But if I can find it, I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes to that as well, in the form of an Amazon affiliate button. So you can click on that if people want to pick it up, and you kind of help us out at the same time. Alan, thanks for giving me a heads up about that. And thanks for reminding me about the thing on the Forble board. That episode is so good. I think I need to listen to that here soon, because it's been a while.
Hey, Derek. Hey, group. Captain Billy here. You mentioned you were going to do The Creeping Terror, the notorious public domain film. I've been meaning to ask you for a long time, what's the best way to find out what movies are in the public domain? You mentioned contacting the Copyright Office. I don't even know how you would jump through those hoops. I was just always curious about, how you can legally make sure a movie's legal to show and do whatever you want with, or... I was the hoops you have to jump through, whatever. If you know someone who's an expert on copyright, because I have no clue. If you know somebody who knows something about copyright laws, I would love to have a long discussion, you two sitting and talking about, what's legal and what's not, and what's fair play, fair game, fair play, I forgot the term, fair use. What fair use is, and all of that. I'd love to hear a talk about that. I've seen movies on archive.org that I could have swore were in copyright. In fact, I've seen comments where people said it was not a public domain movie, but it was still listed there. And I've seen movies where it was hosted by a horror host, and they were posted. So I'm not sure if the content has to be significantly changed in order for it to be considered public domain, or maybe the part with the horror host is public domain, and somehow the movie, I don't know how that rule works. So I would love to hear an episode about that. I don't think that's boring. I think it's fascinating. So I vote for a copyright episode. Thanks, Derek. Good night.
Captain Billy, it's been a long time. I hope you're doing all right. So, public domain stuff. How do I determine whether or not something's in the public domain? So, the easiest way is if it came out anytime up to January 1st, 1925. That's the cutoff. So, that typically means nearly all the silent films out there are going to be in the public domain as long as they came out before January 1st, 1925. Now, that will continue to advance every year moving forward unless there's another change to the copyright law. And what that means is that next year, the new cutoff date will be January 1st, 1926, and so on. So that's typically how that works. But a lot of times, a lot of movies, and television programs for that matter, as well as songs and poems and everything else, will slip into the public domain because At first, the copyright laws were very specific about how things had to be registered and labeled and filed and all that. And if things weren't registered properly, they slipped immediately into the public domain. If something like a copyright symbol was left off of a title page or a title screen, in the case of Night of the Living Dead, it slipped right into the public domain. The copyright laws have changed significantly twice over the years, and there's been talk about it changing again. Not a lot right now, but I have a feeling that as we get closer and closer to more Disney properties slipping into the public domain, just based on that 1925 or 26 or whatever year cutoff, there might be some pushes to change the law again. It's something that Congress and all that has to do. It's an actual law. It's not just kind of like a rule or a guideline. It's an actual law. As far as finding material on archive.org, you know, and even on YouTube or Daily Motion or Vimeo or any of these video sites, just because they're posted there doesn't mean it's in the public domain. I know that there are some horror hosts that post some material out there, and there's some other people that have uploaded things. If you dig deep enough, you're going to find things like Universal's Dracula or Frankenstein or a whole bunch of Hammer films online. Just because they're online doesn't mean they're in the public domain. It just means that the rights holders haven't cracked down on it yet. And a lot of times they don't even know. YouTube's a lot better about this because they have a bunch of built-in algorithms. Sometimes they're a little overprotective, but they have a lot of built-in algorithms to kind of protect against copyrighted material being uploaded and streamed. Archive.org, though, I don't think they have that kind of built-in system to where it gets checked against certain markers and flagged as not allowable there. So in that case, if you find something like, just to kind of go back to what I was saying earlier, Dracula, the Universal film, somebody from Universal would have to contact archive.org and file a DMCA takedown form. That stands for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act form. It's also very similar to what you would file at YouTube to have whoever's hosting that film or that video or that copyrighted material removed. Because the way the laws are set up right now, just because it's uploaded to YouTube or archive.org doesn't mean that they're responsible for violating the copyright. There's an implied trust between the uploader and the hoster that they have permission to upload that material. In fact, with YouTube, I know you have to click that you do own the material to begin with before you hit upload. I'm not sure if that's exactly the same with archive.org. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've used it for various podcasting things. And this even extends to like streaming and what I do on the weekends and on Tuesday at the Monster Kid Movie Club. I know there are some Twitch channels that do show copyrighted material, and that again, I just seems really iffy to me. And just you're taking a risk, because if you get some of these bigger studios, and there is a pretty big studio involved behind a lot of the movies that are being shown, if you get their attention on this, it could cause a problem for not just that person, but it could cause Twitch or any of these other streaming services to overreact the way YouTube sometimes does, and then it affects all of us. So yeah, it's really kind of a mess, a quagmire, so to speak. I've never used the word quagmire in conversation on any podcast ever, but it really is kind of a quagmire and kind of a mess, but fascinating nonetheless. I don't know any copyright lawyers. I'm certainly not a lawyer. All I just said is all just kind of based on my own research. I don't know any lawyers that are into copyright this way or are aware of entertainment law or any of that. But if any of you guys and gals know anybody that might be interested in coming on the show and talking about it, I would love to talk about public domain, copyright, what that means versus what trademark means, because that's a completely different ball of wax. It would just be fascinating for me as well. So I would love that show. Captain Billy would love that show. If there's anybody out there who can help make that show happen, please drop me a line and let me know. Thanks for calling in, Captain Billy. I appreciate it. And yeah, I did get your voicemail about the episode 500, and we'll play that here in a couple of weeks.
You can call and leave a voicemail for Monster Kid Radio at 503-810-5MKR. That's 503-810-5657.
Or you can send an email to the podcast. monsterkidradio@gmail.com is the email address. That's monsterkidradio@gmail.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to see a very unusual trailer about a very unusual picture coming to this theater.
This trailer is unusual because we aren't going to show you any scenes out of the picture, but we are going to tell you the truth.
Arch Obler's new motion picture, The Bubble, is made in a revolutionary new process called space vision And when you come here to see it, we promise you a brand new sensation. I'll repeat that. We promise you a brand new sensation. Why? Because for the first time in any theater, scenes in colorful living dimensions will actually float right off the screen into space and over your heads. That's what I said, over your heads.
In addition, we believe The Bubble is a very entertaining story about most unusual people in a situation you'll talk about for a long time to come. So here's your flat invitation to see Arch Obler's The Bubble when it premieres in this theater.
It's revolutionary. It's exciting. It's newer than television. It's space vision. In all your life, you've never seen anything like it. That's a guarantee.
You'll meet Deborah Wally, an exciting new young actor named Michael Cole, and Johnny Desmond in a great suspense picture.
First, the screen was silent.
Then it talked.
Then color.
Now the greatest advance of them all, the picture floats off the screen.
See motion picture history made in this theater in Arch Obler's exciting story, The Bubble.
The picture floats off the screen.
A remote Pacific island, where an expedition of world-famous scientists investigate incredible rumors of its fantastic mysteries and discover barren volcanic mountains surrounding strange green valleys. Mammoth caves that breed giant mutations. Vampire plants that devour humans. But most astounding of all, the tiniest women in all creation. Sacred beauties of a lost tribe which worships a monstrous creature. What is the secret of Mothra? What is the bizarre spell that awakens Mothra as these doll-sized girls call to the super god from captivity? Mothra, whose revenge is more devastating than any man-made weapon. Mothra, who defies warplanes. Wrecks ocean liners. Smashes dams and bridges. Mothra, creating hurricanes. Mothra, enveloped in a shell that no human force can penetrate. Indestructible, all-powerful, indescribable. What kind of creature is this god monster, Mothra?
Hey, before we play Mark Matzke's Beta Capsule review, I just want to give him another shout out. I know I've talked about it here on the show and I've mentioned it in the show notes, but seriously, check out his Monster Study Group podcast. The most recent episode came out just before Halloween, and it features the return of Andy Matzke to the podosphere. Andy and Mark used to podcast a lot together. It was really cool to hear Andy kind of basically grow up on the podcast, and now he's podcasting with his dad again, at least in this episode. I don't know if it's going to be a permanent thing or if he's going to come back more often, but it was just great to hear the two of them together. So check them out. They're over at anchor.fm/Mark-Matzke. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes, of course. Let's go ahead and get to his Beta Capsule review.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. I saw a bird. That phrase, which serves as the title of the story, is spoken more than once in this, the 12th episode of Ultra Q, which premiered March 20th, 1966. The bird in question is Larugius, an interdimensional holdover from the prehistoric age. The mystery of its existence is first noted by policemen who discover a zookeeper near death, with the nearby animal cages torn open. The zookeeper, clutching a handful of feathers, utters, "I saw a bird," before expiring. At the same time, a 10th century Viking ship abruptly appears in the bay of a fishing village. June, Ipe, and Yuriko board the vessel along with a number of concerned officials and are greeted by a small white bird, whose appearance coincides with the self-destruction of the ship. The trio makes it out alive with the ship's logbook, and Dr. Ichinotani helps them translate the last entry, which reads, "I saw a bird." Together, they identify the bird seen on board the ship as Larugius, but there's a catch. The prehistoric bird typically had a 40-meter wingspan, while the one on the ship was no larger than a sparrow. Meanwhile, an orphan boy named Saburo adopts the white bird as a pet and plays with it all day. When the villagers' chickens disappear overnight, Saburo is blamed, and his avian friend comes to his defense. Larugius is caged and thrown in jail, which sets the stage for a really big surprise. I Saw a Bird is packed with striking special effects, both old and new. This is the second episode to recycle footage from Rodan, but the shots do serve the story well. The highlight for Ultraman fans is the introduction of a young Akihide Tsuzawa, who plays the orphan Saburo. Tsuzawa would go on to portray Hoshino in Ultraman, the youngest member of the Science Patrol. In the English dub, it's implied that Hoshino is Akiko Fuji's younger brother, and of course, Fuji was played by Hiroko Sakurai, who is Yuriko here in Ultra Q. For Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
It's spooky. It's eerie.
It's The Ghost and Mr. Chicken, starring 3-time Emmy Award winner Don Knotts as the world's bravest coward.
I have been called brave. Now let me clarify this. As you see, I'm a lion with girls, a tiger with men. And I'm just naturally at home in a haunted house. So what's brave? How should I know? I'm chicken.
Mr. Chicken to you. In this motion picture, he starts as a roving reporter. Now he's a raving reporter trying to solve a murder mystery in a house of terror. And he'll scare you silly. Don Knotts in The Ghost and Mr. Chicken in Technicolor.
And you're chicken if you missed this movie.
Discover Planet of the Apes. A civilization where humans run wild in the jungles, and the superior beings are apes.
Tribunal has placed you in my custody for final disposition. Do you realize what that means? No. Emasculation to begin with. Then experimental surgery on the speech centers, on the brain. And a kind of living death.
Panic sweeps London from end to end. Even Scotland Yard is baffled. But two men of intrepid daring fight back. It's Abbott and Costello at their hilarious best. Battling fiction's most fearsome themes in Bud Abbott and Lou Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Co-starring Boris Karloff as Robert Louis Stevenson's fabulous double demon.
Mr. Hyde will kill him. Mr. Hyde will kill him.
With Helen Wesson, Craig Stevens, and Reginald Denny.
Hey, stop this fight! There's ladies present!
Bud and Lou are tearing up the town, trapping the beast among a bevy of beauties, adding turmoil to terror in a house of horrors that would frighten even Frankenstein.
Come on, Will! We can catch your monster! Give me a hand! Come on!
Hello there, Monster Kid Radio heads. This is Kenny with a look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. Today's film, Munster Go Home, was previewed in issue 41 from November of 1966. A Go-Go's werewolf from Return of the Vampire welcomed you to this issue, which also included looks at Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, The Black Zoo, and Werewolf of London. Our feature film merited 6 pages and was loaded with 11 large pictures. Its short text consisted of a brief synopsis, starting with the Munsters' ocean voyage and ending with this not quite a spoiler. Highlight of the film is reached when Herman is talked into racing Marilyn's boyfriend Roger. in an annual auto speed contest. On race day, Lily and Grandpa are overpowered and imprisoned in a dungeon, where they are guarded by Terry Thomas. The Griffin knocks Roger out in the garage and ties him up. Then, the Griffin takes Roger's place and goes after Herman in the race. Who wins the race? Do Lily and Grandpa escape from the dungeon? Who is the Griffin? John Carradine? You guessed wrong. For the answers to these amazing and amusing questions, follow your ears to where the laughs and shrieks are, the theater where Munster Go Home is playing. That is all for this week's look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. We will have more next week. For MKR, this is Kenny saying adios.
A nice, short and sweet entry at Famous Monsters of Filmland about Munster Go Home. I love it. Kenny, thanks for sending that in. As always, you nailed it. The song that we played underneath Kenny, the backing track, that was the other version of the Munsters theme that we're playing this week. It comes from the band Los Pretones. They're based out of Peru. This song is available over at greencookierecords.bandcamp.com. Of course, there will be a link in the show notes. They gave us permission to play their song here on the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Kenny, thanks again. Let's go ahead and get into the conversation with Joe Stuber and Scott Morris about the movie.
This is Count Dracula, and I'm here to offer you a friendly warning. Derek and his guests often get excited, and occasionally this results in revealing key plot points of the movies they're discussing. You know how the children of the night, monster kids, can get sometimes. So consider yourself warned. And don't come begging to me to kill them for their transgressions afterward. I have more pressing issues to take care of, like that pesky Van Helsing.
Listeners, if you heard the conversation we had just before I hit record, you'd expect a very different kind of conversation that you're about to hear right now with two of my favorite fellow podcasters, Scott Morris from Disney Indiana and Joe Stuber from Comic Book Central. Welcome to Monster Kid Radio, gang. That means you talk now, yeah.
Scott and I weren't sure which one to jump in. We're both so polite. I mean, that's right. We're both so polite. We were like waiting for each other, and I waited. And then the part of me that hates awkward silences immediately had to jump in. So, Scott, I apologize for jumping in there, but I can't stand awkward silences, so I had to. Boy, this is fun. We've not done this. We've been other places and things, and obviously Monster Bash and stuff. But this is cool. Now we get to sit around and talk about a really cool movie. So glad to be with both of you.
I'm glad to be with both of you too, and I'm also glad to return to MKR. I almost forgot that this podcast existed. It's been so long.
Look, anything that approaches 500 episodes is always going to be on the radar. So it makes me exhausted just even saying this. I don't know where this one's going to hit, pre or post, but you're in half a century land, so or half a millennium land, I guess it would be. So, man, good on you.
We're recording on Monday, and my hope is to have this ready to go out on Thursday. So this will be episode 498.
So close.
So close.
So close. Have you flipped around an episode that quickly before?
About the same. Yeah, about the same. Where I've recorded it on Monday and then put it out on Thursday, yeah.
It's tricky. I've actually done day of.
Oof.
Yeah, I think it was Brandon Routh. I think I did day of because I was trying to get it in before the Superman celebration in Metropolis, which is like 2 days from then. So I think I stayed up and flipped it around. But I don't recommend that to anybody. Give yourself some time to put things together. But this would be cool. This would be cool. So glad to join both of you.
I'm counting on both of your legacy and professionalism as podcasters to make the editing of this whole thing a lot easier on me, right?
I think you lost me at professionalism.
Well, I don't know if that's going to be much of an issue.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. No, this will be fun. I love chatting with people who enjoy what they're talking about. And, if this takes me all night to edit and I have to work on it all the way up until hitting the send button on Thursday morning, so be it, because I've been looking forward to this chat for a long time.
Where do you have the time? You're hosting movie marathons like daily or almost daily. I'd say this before, but thank you for keeping us entertained during COVID time. Like all the movies and my goodness, that's pretty cool. So, and it's a lot of work, and Scott can tell you too, like we're all podcasters and things, so we all do this. There's a lot of work that goes into these shows and to put all these things together. So again, my hat's off to both of you gents just for continuing to crush it on both shows and all the ancillary stuff.
Well, you just hit a milestone yourself, Joe, on your show.
I was not fishing for that by any means at all, but I'm just kidding. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And Cosmo wanted to be on the show too. I don't know if you heard him.
Anniversaries and big episodes all around. So I guess when we've been doing it this long, and it's been a while. It feels like a while, doesn't it?
I've been podcasting for over 10 years now at this point. Monster Kid Radio a little over 7. And Joe, you started right around the time MKR started, right?
MKR, I think you started in May, if I'm not mistaken, and November of 2013 for myself. And Scott, you've been going for how long for podcasting?
I started about 6 months after MOZ started.
Oh, wow.
Not MKR.
Way back in the day.
Yeah, so there's some legacy. There's some legacy shows out here. So look, again, you put that kind of content out, and it's just, I guess there's a sense of professionalism. We'll take that.
Okay.
Sure. Why not? You talked us into it.
I mean, sure. And when you reach this point, the money's just rolling.
Of course.
Is that?
But we're not doing it for the money, Scott. We're not doing it for the money, right?
Oh, we're not?
Well, you've got those Mickey Mouse dollars behind you.
That's right. He's got the Disney cash.
I get paid in Mickey bars.
He's got the Disney cash. He gets paid in Easy Pass.
Oh, there you go.
You get
Fast Pass.
Or Fast Pass. It tells you last time I've been to Disney. That's I'm not going anytime soon.
Yeah, me neither. I've had to cancel 3 trips.
How does that, like, I know Disney people, right? Like, you're one of them, Tracy, obviously, and I know other people, and it's like, that is like a thing. Like, like with Derek, I know the monster, I miss comic conventions, you miss monster conventions, we get it. But like the Disney thing, that's like a thing, right? Like, you're like plan whole trips and cruises and planes and like, are you going through like Disney withdrawal, or are you just like watching
Very
Mandalorian on a loop of just like, give me Baby Yoda, I need an IV of Baby Yoda.
I have bought so much Baby Yoda merchandise and gotten some from other people, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely going through Disney withdrawal. Like I said, we literally have canceled 3 trips to Disney World, 1 trip to Disneyland, and 1 Disney cruise.
Wow. Hopefully back to normal soon. Hopefully we'll get all together again as well in person. That'd be kind of cool at a convention or something. Yeah.
Has to happen.
That's true, too. I miss conventions so much. I hope Monster Bash to do that again someday. I just hope to do anything.
I miss them for easy content. I mean, usually I go to Terrificon and I'll get 5-6 episodes for a weekend. I actually had to go to work this time in August, cranking out some products. So yeah, I do miss them. That is, set the recorder and forget it, man. Host a panel and go for it. But anyway. No, glad we could get together virtually.
We'll talk about the movie here in a second, but just to kind of say something about the convention thing, I just got my latest issue of G-Fan magazine yesterday. G-Fan is the magazine put out by the people that put on G-Fest. It's all Godzilla and Kaiju stuff. And in the editorial, the guy behind G-Fan was commenting on how, earlier this year, cons had to be canceled at the last minute because we didn't know what was going on. As we move into convention season next year, it's a little different because now we know there's the pandemic, and do we even bother schedule anything at this point? And it's going to be a weird year or two, I think, as the conventions kind of even everything out, as conventions kind of even out. So hopefully things happen sooner rather than later. If there is a way to support your local convention, please do so if they're up and running and it's safe, because I know a lot of these guys are struggling. So that's my PSA about fan conventions right there.
Yeah, and they're doing virtual stuff too. I know they've got some virtual stuff out there. And even on Comic Book Central, I tried to do my own version of it. We had Terrificon at home. So like some of the guests that were going to be there, the Justice Leaguers, reuniting. It didn't happen. I was really hoping that would happen. I want to meet the Justice League. But even just having them on the show, just so we're all trying to figure out what to do. But yeah, you're right. It is true. I've already seen some things canceled for next year. It's going to be tricky, but look, everybody mask up. There's my PSA. Mask up, stay safe, social distance, and stay home if you can, and let's get out of this thing as quickly as possible.
Well, as much as I appreciate that cons are trying to go virtual and everything, I'm still missing, the biggest thing I'm missing is my friends, going to see them. Yeah, seeing the celebrities is cool and everything, but you just can't replicate that virtually. Right. And that's what I miss the most.
Yeah, knocking back a few rounds afterward. And so, yeah, that's, talking nerd. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, but we can kind of do it here. I got my adult beverage. We're talking. It's close. We're socially distant. I don't have to worry about giving you guys something horrible.
We are social distancing right now. That's correct.
Yes.
I was going to say, we're Pennsylvania, Indiana, and Oregon. I don't know how much farther we can get apart.
Ohio, close. I know.
Ohio,
it's the crazy Steeler fan that makes the. But I'm from Pennsylvania.
That's what always throws me off.
I'm from Pennsylvania originally, but yes, that's. No, this is as far away as we could possibly get. Unless Scott's on a cruise somewhere, in the ocean, but not unlike the Munsters on a cruise.
Hey, there you go. Let's listen to this professional podcaster giving us a segue without even trying. Yes. All right.
I do what
there
I
you
can.
go. And I appreciate it. Makes my job a little easier, sir. So, yeah, the Munsters on a cruise. And you guys and gals have seen it because I mentioned it at the top of the show. It's in the thumbnail. It's in the artwork. It's in the show notes. We're talking about the movie Munster Go Home.
Herman Munster. Don't I look frightfully handsome in Technicolor? Allow me to present my wife, Lily.
Pleased to meet you.
And Grandpa?
Hello there. I'm glad I was just hanging around the house.
My handsome son, Eddie. And the unfortunate member of our family, my niece, Marilyn. Co-starring Terry Thomas and Hermione Gingold.
Herman Munster inherits a fortune and a castle full of homicidal relatives.
Hey, neat! What kind of secret do you think it could be?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this. Last night, I was looking out my window, and I saw two guys carrying coffins into the building.
Oh, quiet, Father. I'm trying to think.
Come on, Babs.
I really find this movie charming, and I'm excited to talk about it with a couple of my fellow podcasters, my fellow fans, my friends. Try to get a little bit of that community spirit going by just rapping about a movie that makes us smile and laugh. We talked a little bit about this on the movie stream this past Saturday with the movie marathon, as Joe called it, about the Munsters versus the Addams Family. I think those two shows right around that time really gave monster kids of that era some great entertainment that has just lasted through the ages and is still just as funny and relevant today and enjoyable today. This is the first time any of them went big screen, isn't it?
I don't think the Addams Family ever went big screen, did they? Until the reboot or whatever you call it.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I don't think they had a version of it. Although how cool would that have been?
Would have been interesting
to have an Addams Family. They talk about this on the commentary too. It was like the show had ended. Mm-hmm. Munsters, I'm talking about. The show had ended, and they were like back in the olden days. And this is look, I always talk about how old I am. And I am old, make no mistake about it. But this does predate me. But I remember it in syndication, obviously. I grew up with it in syndication every day. So I thought that's how shows run, But this show only lasted 2 years? And then they were trying to sell a syndication package. So that's how the movie came about. So that's why the big screen.
I think both shows just had a very short run, just a couple of seasons. And this being in color and the big screen, trying to sell syndication rights, didn't bring the entire cast back. They kind of swapped out the Marilyn again. But you know what? We got to see the Munster home at 1313 Mockingbird Lane in full color. It was awesome to see. It's great to see that makeup in color, to see the character designs in color. The first time you guys saw this, was it a shock, or did it kind of meet your expectations in terms of what they should have looked like in color? Do you remember?
I think it was about what I thought. I mean, you see the pictures now. If you go online, they have pictures I think it's more of the Addams Family being their sets in pink. Have you seen those pictures?
I've seen those pictures. Joe, are you familiar with that?
Like I said, my familiarity with it was the TV series. So like it. Well, Scott, go ahead. But yeah, you obviously saw it a lot earlier than I did. Mine was a little bit more recent with Monster Go Home.
Well, supposedly the Addams Family set for the TV show was pink, so the contrast would show up better in black and white. So I don't know if the Munsters did something similar to that, but I never, as a youngster, I never really gave that much thought. So when I saw this, probably sometime late 70s is probably when I first saw this, and seeing them in color, that's kind of what I expected, them being in color. Technicolor came around, and now we get to see them that way.
Didn't they do that on Superman, The Adventures of Superman with George Reeves too? Like, wasn't it like brown? Like you see some of the, I think I've seen the original suits and things like that, and they were like a shade of brown just to get the hues right between the grays and the blacks and the grays on the show. It wasn't blue, it wasn't red, but until obviously they went color. With it as well. So yeah, it's weird when you see some of those old timey things, how they had to get the shading right, so no color even on what they were wearing.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
True.
And it is the Addams Family you're talking about, Scott, where you look at the old sets from that, and it's just this really weird kind of surreal feeling that you get looking at these sets that in black and white and shades of gray, being in these brightly lit, pinks and whites. To see the Munsters in color is just, it's neat. I really like it. And I know they probably had to change the makeup design a little bit because we are shooting in color now as opposed to black and white. It's a slightly different kind of makeup, but it's just cool to see these guys and gals in full color there. And on the big screen. I imagine seeing it on the big screen was even more fun than it is watching it at home.
That's what I wish I could have seen it on a big screen. I've only seen it on television.
I was thinking about that, because like I mentioned, I was born in '67, so this is a year after this came out. So we missed that era, missed Beatlemania, missed obviously caught up with it later. But I keep thinking how great was 1966? Because, obviously Batman, and we might get into this, but Batman came along and kind of trounced. That's why the Munsters didn't get the ratings, because Batman just killed everybody, Lost in Space and everything too. But it was so interesting because at that time, color was just coming in. So Batman was in color. So that's why when you watch it, all these garish pinks and blues and greens, and people are like, oh my goodness. But it was those colors. So when the Munsters went to the big screen, that was a huge deal. We think about the Batman movie in 1966. You had all the vehicles, you had all, 4 villains. How cool would it have been just that whole era of just seeing television characters up on the big screen? I almost wonder they should have had a Lost in Space movie at that time, It was maybe to sell the syndication package like they did with the Munsters. How cool would that have been? I know they were in color, in the second season on, but could you imagine what they could have done on the big screen with Lost in Space? That would have been so cool. So this 66 was that would have been a sweet time to be in the theaters.
And that's the year of my Corvair that I own. So I like 66 as well. But I wasn't born until 68. So
okay, boomer. So I'm the younger here. No, I'm just teasing. Yeah, no, I am the baby here amongst the crew, but
just your jokes are old.
Yeah,
though, right?
Something like that. Wow. Wow. Okay. No, it would have been a great time, and you're right. I mean, pitching something in color, that was a thing. If you go back and listen to old commercials of Star Trek, for the original Star Trek, you'll hear them at the very end in color, because they're really trying to sell the idea that it's in color, and it's a big deal to see something in color. And I'm sure that was a big draw for this as well, for the Monster Go Home film.
Oh yeah, the uniforms.
Oh yeah,
the uniforms. Just think of the start, the yellow, the red, the blue, and then they were selling TVs too. Don't forget, they were selling TVs. Yep. At the time, they're but put one of these in your home. You're like, okay, I'll buy it because I have to see colors.
Exactly. And so I'm sure that was a big selling point of this particular film as well.
Yeah.
It does feel like it's got some holdovers from the original show in terms of some of the sitcom setups. It's a little weird to see some of the jokes without hearing a laugh track and that sort of thing. But it's still the charm of the Munsters, and I've always been a fan of this particular franchise.
But in the context, it was in a theater. So you had a full theater. You had your own laugh track with you at the time. It is weird watching it on TV because, like you said, the side-by-side comparison, if you watch, especially one of the sets I have is a DVD and includes one of the episodes on it. So yeah, the laugh track. But if you're in a theater, man, and you get to just laugh along with Munster fans, that had to be just the best.
That's a good point.
The absolute
That's
best.
a good point. Something I hadn't considered. You're right. There'd be like a live laugh track right there.
Yeah, you didn't have to tell like what a producer thought the laugh should be. If it was funny, you got to laugh. If it wasn't, fell flat. Yeah, right.
I think Sven Gulli has even shown this too, so you get a little bit of horror host interaction on some as well. And I think before watching it this morning for this recording, that was the last time I saw it was on Sven Gulli.
Yeah, before I watched it Friday night, the most recent time was a Sven Gulli episode.
Because it is a Universal production, and Sven Gulli has a deal with the Universal people and all that. So it is Universal through and through, and you can kind of get that feel, too, from it.
Definitely with the casting.
Well, that, and also, since I've been to Universal Studios California through the VIP tour, I've gone to Little Europe where a lot of the original Universal monster movies were filmed, and I noticed some of the outside sets in this were filmed there. I recognize them.
So jealous, man. I need to get out there someday. Take some of that podcast money and organize a field trip, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely noticed, this is at Universal Studios.
Well, even the movie poster, because you guys know that I like to try to do the movie poster artwork, right across the top. When in Southern California, visit Universal Studios. Right across the top.
Tell them Bab sent you.
Well, it's definitely Universal, and the folks in the cast are, Universal production players. Even like you referenced it earlier, Debbie Watson as Marilyn instead of Pat Priest. Universal was trying to make a starlet. She was under contract, and she was a kid. I think she graduated high school during the production of this. They were grooming her to be. You look at her IMDb page. She got out of acting not too long after that. But no, that was the idea. Universal was like, hey, we'll put her in this, and then you see this whole subplot with her and Chris Pine's dad, going on, and it's like they were grooming her to have her own movies coming out of this. So yeah, definitely a Universal product.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was Chris Pine's dad. You're right.
Oh, seriously? Oh yeah, it's Captain Kirk's dad.
You know who he is also?
What do we got?
Well, I know. Let's see which reference Scott leans to first.
Did you watch Chips?
Yeah.
The whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, where do I know him? Where do I, recently? Because he looks familiar, but not quite. He's Sergeant Gautreaux from Chips.
Yeah, the great Robert Pine. You know which reference I'm going to lean toward, though.
Octavio on the Disney Channel.
Of course.
Ellen of Avatar.
Sure, why not? Top left corner of Match Game. He was on Match Game a few times. Yeah, I always like watching him on Match Game because I'm always like, that's Chris Pine's dad. That's Captain Kirk's dad. But yeah, Chips was the big one. But it's so cool seeing him.
I like how Scott was I know I've seen him recently in something. What was it recent that I've seen? Oh, Chips. Really?
Chips.
Recent? Okay.
Hey, I love MeTV.
Yeah, hey, nothing wrong with that.
The big Netflix smash, Chips.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I did miss Pat Priest. Pat Priest is my favorite Marilyn. I did make a comment earlier about how they recast her again. There was a different Marilyn in the first few episodes of the original series.
Beverly Owen, yeah. She was on 13 episodes. I know all these things because I did some preps for an interview this summer. She wanted to get married. Butch Patrick tells the story, but it's basically she wanted to get married. Her agent told her, just do this, cash the check. It's not going to go anywhere. You're going to be out. And it took off. And so she wanted to get married to a Sesame Street writer and producer who got like crazy rich. She didn't need to be in Hollywood anymore. So she married quite well. But she wanted to get married and didn't want to be an actress. And the powers that be put their foot down and said, no, you're staying on the show. You're under contract. And it was Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis who said, you let her out of her contract or you ain't got no show.
Was it because they didn't like her or they were kind of sticking up for her? I never really understood that.
No. They were sticking up for her. They knew she wanted to be married. They knew that she didn't want this. She fell in love. She wanted to leave. And it was in New York. He was producing Sesame Street in New York. And she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. My agent told me it'd be a one and done, And so they said they knew that her heart wasn't in it, that they would just be keeping her just to keep her. So they put their foot down. That's the clout that these guys had too. They're, coming in from Car 54 but yeah, so that's how Pat Priest came into it.
Right on. You talk about coming in from Car 54. I don't think that Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis get enough credit as a comedy team. Watching this and watching their interaction, especially when they're snooping around the castle looking for the secret of Herman Manor or whatever. Just seeing those two together doing what they're doing, it's like, these guys really had a spark. They had a chemistry.
Full disclosure, as you're saying that, the scene you just described is playing on my set. I got it in the background. So as you're saying it, I'm watching them do it. It's so brilliant.
In some scenes, they're kind of antagonistic toward each other, and in other scenes, they got each other's back, and it's just they're playing off of each other and really riffing. And one of my favorite moments of this whole film, you mentioned Car 54, is when Herman's yelling at Grandpa, "Call the police, call the FBI, call Batman, Car 54, where are you?" It's just, I love the Batman reference. I don't know if it was intentional or not, since Batman kicked the show off the air, basically. Or
little dig.
Yeah, but the Car 54, because they were in the TV show together before this. And if you've seen Car 54, they're fun together there too. So that's one of my favorite moments of this whole thing.
It's the comedy team between the two of them. And there's so much joy. And it was recently released on Blu-ray this year. And so you not only get the commentary track with Butch Patrick and Rob Zombie, which is fantastic, but you get like these radio interviews that Universal did at the time to send out, and you get to hear Yvonne DiCarlo and Fred Gwynn, and it's just, and Al Lewis, and it's just, there's so much joy. Like you can tell when actors faking, like they're just publicizing.
Yeah, the Blu-ray that you're referring to was put out by Shout Factory. I've got it too, and it is got a lot of cool stuff on it.
Yeah. But don't you get a sense when you listen to the extras and you listen to some of these that they enjoyed that? Like Yvonne DiCarlo at the time had her personal Jaguar tricked out, Munster-fied. Like she had Munster stuff on it, and cobwebs and Dracula stuff and things like that. It's just like it seemed like they got into it at the time, and that is displayed on screen. That's why when you see Al Lewis and Fred Gwynn together and Herman does the he did that on the show, but he just there is a sense of joy in it. Afterward, I think Fred Gwynn thought, this really stuck with me through my career. But even at the end, I think he said that he liked the character.
Yeah.
But boy, in the moment, and especially in this film, they look like they are having a blast. They really do, and that comes across.
So the movie's called Monster Go Home. It's not because somebody's trying to kick them out of their home where they're at now in 1313 Mockingbird Lane. They actually have a reason to go over to England, and then they're being told to go home. And why are they going to England? And I love this because they name dropped Frankenstein, and that makes me happy.
Well, he inherits Munster Hall because it turns out that he was adopted. He was actually a Frankenstein monster and was adopted by the Munsters.
Yeah, in the series itself, it's also said at one point or another that Frankenstein made Herman. So
1815.
Yep, and I love that.
At the University of Heidelberg. Yeah, he was.
So they name drop Frankenstein in this, and they talk about why his last name's Munster and why he's got to go over to England. He's inheriting this manor. He's going to become a lord, and it goes immediately to his head.
Yeah, Lord Munster.
He's got on the jacket, his jacket when he gets on the cruise ship.
Oh, the yellow jacket. He looks like he's going into the NFL Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Let's say Lord Munster.
And I love that too, because it's a chance to get us a double joke, right? Because they're walking on the cruise ship as they're getting ready to go over to England, and they kind of comment to each other, I feel like everybody's staring at us. Well, of course they are. You guys are a bunch of monsters. No, it's not because of that. It's because you've blinged out your coat to let everybody know that you are now Lord Munster. And I like that kind of like 1-2 punch,
Yeah, and the hat and everything. Yeah, it's just... Yeah, the costuming in this flick is great. I mean, they look so amazing. It's funny, too, because on the Blu-ray, you can see so many details on these things, too. So I love the color. As I say this, there's a scene where Lily holds her hands up. And you can see, though, where the makeup doesn't cover. So there's all those kind of things. Yeah. But the costuming is just amazing. The effects, the stunts, the gags. There's so much good stuff in this film.
It really is. And I love when they go over to Munster Hall, because then we get to see one of my guys. I love me some John Carradine. And if you're not paying attention, you might not realize that's who it is right at first, because he's got this great makeup job. And I don't know who did the makeup, but you got John Carradine in here as a butler, as the butler, as Crookshank. And once he starts speaking, then you're like, oh yeah, that's John Carradine. You know who that is. But he looks great. Really appreciated that. And they got a couple of other people, including Terry Thomas.
He is just so over the top in this flick. But if you're going to be over top in the flick, it's a Munster movie, right?
Yeah, so nobody's sticking out. I mean, I think the people that stand out the most, and this was kind of a big joke through the entire thing, Marilyn and Roger. They stick because they're playing it straight, but everybody else is so over the top. Even though the biological monsters, I guess, Terry Thomas and company, even though they've got some quirks, we're going to kill them, we're going to hit them with a jagged object or whatever.
Yeah.
They're just as over the top as everybody else, but then you got Roger who's kind of playing things kind of straight. It's just great. I just am kind of getting wrapped up in the whole thing right now. I need to dial it down a little bit so I actually make sense when I do the edit.
Terry Thomas's tantrums too, though, are just off the charts. It's just so much fun watching him just like literally throwing himself down on the ground and stomping his feet like a baby. And I mean, if people haven't seen it, basically the thing is that Herman gets to take over he gets everything. He gets the whole mansion. He gets the fortune, and everything. And they're not happy about that. Especially Freddie Munster. He was supposed to be Lord Munster.
But I was supposed to be Lord Munster. Yes.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot. In just a few years, he's going to play Sir Hiss in Robin Hood, Disney's Robin Hood, playing roughly the same type of character.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And how about Bernard Fox, too? Because I always loved him on Hogan's Heroes.
Oh, Colonel Crittenden.
Yeah. He just, every time I saw him in an episode, I'm like, that's a classic. It was on, yesterday, I think it was on, was it Sundance or one of them or something? And I saw one of those episodes. It was, I think, a 2-part or something. I record, boom, that's an automatic record. I can watch these. And he's so good in it. And we know they're shooting on the Universal backlot, but it really does, in a sense, feel like there's like English pubs, and they're in there, and Richard Dawson's there, and Bernard Fox is there.
Another Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah, I think everybody brought everybody from Hogan's Heroes to shoot this thing. But it does give a sense like they're there. They're not. They're in California shooting, but especially when Al Lewis comes into the English pub.
Oh man, I love that.
And I forgot the name of the English pub. It's got a great name, but I totally forgot.
I was just about to ask you guys because I remember thinking that's a great name. I need to remember that, and now I'm spacing on it.
Yeah, me too.
Look, you guys talk, and I'll just rewind. It's in the scene. It's in the scene of the Irish pub or the English pub. So
all the English pub scenes feel at home, and they feel real. Whatever they did to this movie, yes, it's shot on the back lot. Yes, it's brightly lit when it needs to be. It's all this Technicolor. But when they throw in the fog, man, it's perfect. It's like this is where we need to be. I really dug it. And when Grandpa walks into the pub,
it's like kind of that Universal Monsters horror. Like it has a sense of that, and then all of a sudden it's Al Lewis. It's Grandpa.
Yeah. But the people in the pub don't know that.
No.
And I love their reaction to him being there. It's just great. Oh, man. So, yeah, they go over there because they're going to take ownership of the hall, and there's the other monsters that live there that don't want that to happen. Ultimately, this whole thing culminates in a race, and I'm not really sure I know how we got there in terms of the story, but it does seem like, okay, well, we can't kill him, so we're going to beat him in a race and kill him there. Okay. That makes sitcom sense to me.
Well, again, put yourself in the time period too. This is like drag racing. I mean, think of the monkeys. They had the Monkey Mobile, and again, it was George Barris created all these vehicles. The great George Barris. So that was the big thing back then. Drag racing cars in film and TV. They had the model kits. Mm-hmm. You bought all these model kits and everything. So they had to get a drag race in somehow. Does it make sense? No, but we get the Dracula out of it.
Oh yeah, that car, man. Well, the Monsters car was always cool anyway, but Scott, you're more of a car guy. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I'll show you how much of a car guy. I was watching the race near the end of the film, and I was counting all of the left-hand drive vehicles and thinking, these should all be right-hand drive. They're in England.
I was going to ask you about that, Scott, because I know you're a car person a lot more than I am. If the steering wheels were on the right side or not, or left side, I guess.
But no, I love the Dracula. That's such a cool car.
To have the Munsters coach and the Dracula in one film?
Yep.
The Bird in the Bush. The Bird in the Bush is the name of the pub.
Oh, there you go.
Just saying.
Yeah, I love the fact that the cruise ship that they take, you can bring your car with you. And so the coach gets to make the journey over the pond.
Yep. But it was so iconic, right? You think about it. That was like, you couldn't do a Munsters movie. If you're taking them out of 1313 Mockingbird Lane and you're just taking there's got to be something from the TV show, something iconic. And that car was iconic. I mean, you think of like the Beverly Hillbillies jalopy, all the cars in the 60s TV shows, they were just, oh my goodness.
Very cool. And you've got to have that. And like you said, you take them out of the house. So let's see, put my cards on the table here. I haven't watched an episode of The Munsters in a long time, but I've watched them all over the years, over and over and over again. And a lot of the scenes are embedded in my brain. And I don't remember them spending a lot of time away from or outside of the house anyway. Because this is a bigger budget film, obviously you can get out of the house and you have to kind of show off what you're doing. But they still bring the touches. They still bring the coach. You still get to see an appearance of Spot right before they leave the home. You still have Woof Woof the doll. I mean, you still have all these little moments, these little touchstones that remind you, yeah, this is what the Munsters was. And I love that.
And you've got to have Grandpa's lab, his portable lab, obviously, in this one. But yeah, that's another thing that's iconic for the show was his lab.
Yeah. Is it potions? He was always like making potions or pills.
Yep.
The wolf pills.
The wolf pills. Well, that was and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was the episode. Wasn't you're referring to like the episode where Eddie gets the beard?
Yes.
The full beard. That was the coolest thing this year. It was so weird because I saw, again, putting in the context of the summer, I saw Herman Munster trending. I don't know if you guys remember this over the summer when there was like a lot of civil unrest going and all the demonstrations. And Herman Munster was, I'm like, why was Herman Munster trending?
Yeah.
In that episode that Scott was referring to, there's this speech that has just gone viral over the years of of tolerance. And it doesn't matter if you're black or you're white or you're this, if you're tall or you're thin or you're ugly or you're handsome like your dear old dad. It was always the joke. And I forget the actual quote. He's basically, was it the strength of your character, the size of your heart, and the strength of your character? Those are the things. And it was like that trended. And Herman Munster was trending. It was so cool because I had Butch Patrick on the show not long after that, and I got to talk to him about that. And he's like, "Yeah, that was a moment." He goes, "That's what we did. That's what the writers did. They always tried to find a way to work those things in." So you mentioned the episode. It was just so odd to see Herman Munster trending this year. So we got a Blu-ray of Munster Go Home. We got Herman Munster teaching us lessons from 55 years ago or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, it was just it was cool to see kind of those things that they're always with us.
It's fun. Okay, it's something that we laugh at. It's a sitcom with monsters, but they still had you talk about the fun, the joy, the heart. There's just something there to kind of connect us 55, 50, 60, however many years later. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why I think the monsters are so eternal and so hard to kind of revisit them without these people portraying these roles, without this spirit, I know they tried to relaunch it at one point with Jerry O'Connell, I think was Herman, and it just doesn't feel right without this particular
without the makeup.
Without the makeup and
right.
Without the sensibility and just the fun and the joy, and that carried over to the film. It really did. I mean, even at the end during the race where they're worried that Herman's going to get killed, Grandpa and Lily are out there doing everything they can for Herman, for their family. That's something. That's cool.
Yeah, and it's Lily's the one that saves the day, right?
Yeah, I love it. It's a light story. It's not a very heavy story at all, but God, it's got so much heart. It's so much fun.
It's not one that you really want to throw a lot of tomatoes at.
And I appreciated that too. So I've talked about some of my favorite moments. What are some of your favorite moments from the film? And so that there's not any awkward silence, we'll start with, I'll say Joe this time.
Okay, no more arguments. You hit on one of the ones, where they reference Batman. I thought that was a cool little dig. Yeah, of course they threw a dig at Batman, right? You're going to put us out. Well, we're on the big screen, so there you go. And we're going to be forever in syndication too, so they get the last laugh. Man, I love. There's a part where and you and I talked about this on the Abbott and Costello movies. Mm-hmm. I kind of dig when characters break the fourth wall. I love when Bugs Bunny does it. I love when Abbott and Costello do it. Al Lewis breaks the fourth wall in this. Maybe even Batman does it. Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. Who's he talking? Of course he's talking to the audience. I love that era when they do stuff like that. So there's an element of that in there as well. I just threw a bunch of trivia in here, just like some cool stuff. If you're an Andy Griffith Show fan, Jack Dodson, this is his big screen debut. He plays Howard Sprague on the Andy Griffith Show, but he pops up in here. I think it's on the cruise ship, right?
Yes.
He's one of the stewards. I mentioned that Richard Dawson. Look, I loves me my Match Game. I loves me my Family Feud. I loves me my Richard Dawson. I had got a chance to ask Butch Patrick about this on the show. I'm like, tell me, I know you didn't work with Richard Dawson, but and he goes, oh, he hit on my mom. Like on the set, he's like, "Hey, he was doing that kissing thing long before Family Feud." I'm like, right, but wouldn't you be disappointed if Richard Dawson didn't hit on Eddie Munster's mom? Like, of course he would. It was 1966 and he's Richard Dawson. You mentioned John Carradine. That was, amazing. And I love at the end, there's an element too where Herman's capturing the bad guys at the end, and he's like whipping these tires. And all I could think of was like Christopher Reeve doing that years later in Superman 3, like flinging those tires, and so the drag race, it makes no sense. And the cool thing about the drag race, it pops up in the comic book. There was a comic book series, by the way, ran for a few years, 16 issues. I got to work in a comic book theme at some point. Sure. And the Dracula appears on 2 of the covers. And there's a story in it on both of those. So if you can't get enough of the Dracula, go get you the comics.
One part that I wanted to mention, and one of the actors that we haven't really talked about, is Arthur Mallett, who is playing Alfie, which is Richard Dawson's partner in crime.
Okay.
I love the interaction between those two characters, especially when they're going to Munster Hall at the beginning and they're carrying out the coffins and they're afraid to look at what's in there. I really like the interaction there, and I love the scene at the end of the film when they carry the 2 coffins out, and you're thinking they're the what they've been carrying out the whole time, but this time it's actually Grandpa and Lily. And the way they rise out of the coffin to scare them just cracks me up. I think it's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
And Derek's going to like this. Do you know who Arthur Mallett, what his Disney connection is?
Disney connection. Here we go. What do you got?
He was the king in the Black Cauldron.
Oh, was he really?
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Deep cut.
That's awesome.
He's also in Mary Poppins, by the way.
And they're not just like cameos, and like they've got their own little subplot. Like there's like their own little movie going on in there, and then like Marilyn's got her own little movie going on, and then you got the shenanigans of the Munsters. So there's like all kinds of crazy stuff going on here. There's just not like people popping up. They gave them something to do, which in movies like this, that doesn't happen that often.
No, you couldn't do that on a sitcom. On a sitcom, you don't have an A and a B and a C plot or anything like that. But this is a full-on movie, and they take advantage of it.
The ironic thing, and to pull it back into, especially that I'm talking to you two about this, Arthur Mallett and Richard Dawson's character, if this was a few years before, could have easily been played by Abbott and Costello.
Oh, yeah.
I could see that.
So, yeah, I could easily see that, Scott, where they all of a sudden they get their own film out of this.
Especially and that, and also with their reaction to some of the Munster shenanigans. And just, it reminded me a lot of Abbott and Costello, which is a good thing.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm watching, as you're speaking, I'm watching them at the bar at the pub right now, just having the conversations. Has nothing to do with the Munsters movie. They're just having this own little thing. And their reactions to these things is they're just knocking back drink after drink. That's classic. Yeah, they are definitely a standout in this.
And I love the way they're introduced, those 2 characters specifically, because you get a little bit of Burke and Hare going on here, but then you have to realize it's a Munster movie. Of course, they're not Robin Graves, but still, they're still playing up on that, and I just adore that too.
By the way, speaking of Abbott and Costello, I have to go back and listen to our conversation about Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man. I don't know that, Derek, you and I referenced the fact that 1313 Mockingbird Lane is the house that was used in that film.
I'm sorry?
Yes. Well, apparently I don't think we did then, because if you don't recall it, the house in the film, Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man, 823 Maple Lane, is the same house on the Universal backlot as 1313 Mockingbird Lane. That's one of the little gems. So watch the Rob Zombie, Butch Patrick commentary, get that. Listen to Derek and I talking about Abbott and Costello. You get the full picture. But yeah, that's the same house. Same house. It was one of the first times it was used.
And that house eventually went on to become part of Desperate Housewives.
I did know that.
They're saying now they're spending more time talking on the tour about Desperate Housewives than they were the Munsters. Like, yeah, Desperate Housewives, that's cool and more modern, but pop culture iconic? You got to have the Munsters house, right? And they just like it became more about Desperate Housewives. And like, yeah, even Butch Patrick's like, I don't get that at all. You got the Munsters house. It should be the Munsters house. one of the other things that I liked about it too was on these Blu-ray extras as you're going through, and it kind of tugged at my heart a little bit. You might know Kevin Burns, producer, obviously A&E biography. He's been on the show Lost in Space. He's the guy that brought Lost in Space back so many times. We lost him this year. You see these international movie posters, you see these behind the scenes photographs on the Blu-ray. It's so cool to go back, and it just says courtesy Kevin Burns, and it's like this guy had everything in his collection. He was a huge Monsters fan. He was a huge Lost in Space fan. He owned the Lost in Space rights. We have the Netflix series thanks to him. I saw the name pop up, and that tugged at my heartstrings a little bit, and it's just bittersweet because thank goodness he collected all these things so we could look at them. But what a loss this year too. So that was interesting to see.
Do we know how well this did theatrically?
I did not check that. It didn't get another movie for till the 80s, so probably didn't do well, right, Scott? I'm guessing.
Right. I don't think it did all that well, but it was frequently double billed with The Ghost of Mr. Chicken.
Yes.
Which would have been a fun double feature to watch.
Yeah, it would have.
Could you imagine going to a drive-in and seeing that double bill? That's a night right there.
I might actually watch the movie.
That's exactly
and not
what
make out in the car.
Yes. I was just going to go outside and project it on the garage. Let's do our own double bill, right?
Yeah, I didn't know how well it did, but I did hear that I did see that it had been released with Ghost of Mr. Chicken, which, I mean, you've got the Munsters and with its iconic music even, and then I think Vic Missy did Ghost of Mr. Chicken, didn't he? And then he did the Addams Family, so he got some awesome music for the night. And then, man.
I did read where this film didn't do all that well, and it actually, the studio had been thinking of bringing Would You Believe Get Smart to the big screen.
Yeah, that's right.
Since the Munster Go Home didn't do that well, they canceled that project.
Oh.
But Rob Zombie's favorite film, we know that. And it got a Blu-ray in 2020. So, again, suck on that, all y'all haters out there that didn't like Munster Go Home back in the day. You know what? Again, the Munsters get the last laugh. A big booming Herman Munster laugh. We know how that sounds.
And it's still available from Scream Factory, which is a division of Shout Factory.
Yeah.
$23. Not bad.
I just ordered it on 2-day delivery. I had the DVD. So, and I have the DVD and it's got Munster's Revenge on it and has an episode. So I had that for preps for Butch Patrick. I didn't realize the Blu-ray was coming out. And I got so busy producing the show, I didn't get the Blu-ray, and I knew we were recording this. So a certain conglomerate retail outlet that's out there, but I did order, I got 2-day shipping on it, and it came in a day, which is crazy. It dropped it off on my front porch, and I had the Blu-ray in time to watch it. So you can get it, like Scott said, cheap and fast. And we're all home. We ain't going anywhere. Go get you some Munster Go Home.
Now, I don't have the Blu-ray myself. I've been relying on other ways to see it. And it is something that I'm going to make sure I add to my wish list and all that, because I would love to get my hands on it just for the special features and the commentary track. And it comes with another movie, too, doesn't it? The Munster's Revenge is on the Blu-ray?
Yeah, Munster's Revenge.
Revenge is on that.
I've never seen that. What is that?
Are you setting up a future Monster Kid Radio?
I mean, for how long it took those
episode 501. I know, in 5 years from now, for episode 600.
I'm just curious. It's the original cast, at least for the adults in that one, too, isn't it?
Different Marilyn again. We're used to that, right?
Yeah.
And different Eddie. Eddie had Butch Patrick had on the role. Scott, this was with robots, right? Munster Robots?
I've only seen it once, and I can't remember.
Forever ago, yeah. I haven't watched that one yet, but I think it's with the Munster Robots, and they were in it.
So.
Yeah, not as Munstery, because it's different. But the three main stars, and you get Fred and Fred Gwynn and Al Lewis and Yvonne DeCarlo. So what more do you want?
They're kind of the heart. I mean, I appreciate what the kids were doing, but they're kind of the heart. You got to have that. Okay, well, I'm curious. I'll call it a bonus if I ever do get my hands on the Blu-ray, and I'll watch those too. I was laughing when Scott told me that Rob Zombie was on the commentary track. It's like, really? How does that? I don't understand. But it sounds like he gave some good information and it was worthwhile.
Yeah, it's his favorite film, he said. He's a huge Monsters fan. And it's, Scott, you've listened to it, right?
Oh, yeah. There's one scene where he's talking about the coach. That was his favorite car, that and
yes.
Christine.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
There's a
and because he's talking to Butch Patrick, and obviously Butch was very young when they did the show. They only did the show for 2 years, did this movie in a few weeks. So, but for 55 years he's been talking about it. But he remembers only so much at the time. You know, obviously Eddie Munster's not in every scene, and even in this film, he's used sparingly. So it's interesting. So it's more of just like a chat about his years talking about the Munsters and what he remembers, you know, about different things like that. But it is very cool to hear. And they talk about, talked about Halloween, and because there's a scene with a horse in this one, and he talks about shooting with a horse. And so they kind of go off on their own little tangents about their own movies too. So it's like a really cool conversation. It's like, and then like, oh, by the way, there's a movie playing in the background.
So it's one of those kind of commentary tracks.
Well, you're right. But, you know, there's a scene where what's that?
I was actually surprised how enjoyable it was, because I'm not a big Rob Zombie fan.
Yeah, right.
But I enjoyed listening to the commentary.
You mean he doesn't have a Disney connection or something, Scott? I'm surprised.
But there is a scene where Eddie sleeps in a drawer
on the boat.
Yeah, on the boat. Journalist Justin Beam. It was moderated, so there's three of them doing the talking. So he kind of keeps things on track too. But they're like blabbing. Oh, and I remember I did, the drag racer, and I had my cars, and I got a mock up. But then the journalist jumps in and goes, "By the way, let me jump in here. There's part in the movie there where you're in a drawer. Like, how long were you in that drawer?" He's like, they didn't keep me in the drawer too long. There are laws, you know. So there's cool things, like there is a dude there that will bring you back to the movie when something amazing happens in it too. So, and like as we're talking, I'm watching the interior of the castle, you know, the scenes, and this could be like an Abbott and Costello monster movie kind of thing, you know. It just, the look of it, the big spike things coming down, and the trap doors and the walls busting. God, man, it is just so cool. I want to watch this again. As soon as we're done, I'm watching it again.
Like I said, I want to get my hands on the Blu-ray. I want to watch it again now.
Yeah. Watch it with the commentary track. It's pretty cool.
We've been talking for about an hour now at this point, and we all have deadlines because we're all super busy. Before we wrap up, is there anything else we want to say about the movie? I think the story is pretty basic. We've kind of danced around it a little bit. But is there anything else we want to say about the film before we start plugging Joe and Scott's projects?
Well, I would definitely say if you are a fan of the Munsters and you haven't seen this, why haven't you watched this? Because it does, in part, does feel like an extended television episode, which is not a bad thing if you're a fan of the show.
Right.
And I also got a vibe of the Abbott and Costello and the monster movies, which is good as well. I enjoy this movie a lot, and I can't recommend the Blu-ray enough. It's so crisp. They've restored it beautifully. Mm-hmm. And the radio interviews are fun. There's also some radio commercials.
Oh, yeah.
Trailers and the original theatrical trailer. So definitely worth picking this thing up.
I echo everything Scott said. It looks amazing. It sounds amazing. You could see it's the Munsters. They're in color. They're in bright, vivid color. It's so cool. And I could watch Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis all day long. The comedy team, Derek, you're right. They don't get enough credit.
I think I would probably want to end this conversation by reminding people that when you're in Southern California, you should visit Universal Studios.
The Desperate Housewives house?
Yeah.
Sure.
Now, seeing this movie and seeing the scenes when they're, walking through the little town, and I'm like, that's Little Italy, or Little Europe. I've been there. That's so cool.
That is one thing that I read, is that people would ask Butch Patrick over the years, what it was like shooting in England. And he's like, yeah, we were at Universal.
Not so much.
Yeah, Tracy was watching it with me, and she's like, I don't think there's that many, green hills and mountains in England. Did you see in the background of the race?
Right. Exactly. It looks awfully sunny.
Yes.
Shouldn't it be foggy and rainy all the time?
All the time, right.
They should not, yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, the drag race is pretty awesome.
Oh, yes, it's great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Complete with all the different hijinks you need, with the road closed sign being on the wrong side of just everything, and the recurring gag of the couple in the haystack.
And the motorcycle with the sidecar, which they did like every movie where you're gonna hit something. Gotta
have that.
Never not funny. Never not funny.
Always works.
Yep.
So we were kind of talking a little bit at the beginning of this. Okay, we really were talking about this at the beginning of this. All three of us have been podcasting for a while. Scott is the man behind Disney Indiana every other week, giving us a visit to the park from their humble home in Indiana. How many episodes are you up to now, man?
This past weekend was episode 324.
Listen to you, man. That's awesome.
Congrats, man.
And Disney keeps buying up properties, so you're going to have plenty of stuff to talk about for a long time.
That's the craziest thing is he will never, ever, ever run out of material because they own everything.
Yeah, we actually got our first episode on The Simpsons not too long ago. We talked about Treehouse of Terror.
Love it. Love it.
And then Mr. Joe Stuber over there, knocking it out of the park, man. Comic Book Central, bringing comic books to life. You know, I knew that show was going to be awesome when you did your very first episode and you knocked it out of the park with Stan Lee as your first guest.
All downhill from there, right?
Dude, I mean, come on.
That was awesome.
But you've had some amazing guests over the years. Just a grand time over there. If you're a comic book fan, you need to see it. You need to watch it. You got to watch it. Or I'm sorry, you need to listen to the show. Watch it, listen. I don't know. Stay outside Joe's house and watch it.
I launched the Comic Book Central YouTube channel. I got some. I had a Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. video interview this year, so that was kind of cool with Henry Simmons and Jeff Ward. Like I want to call him Deke because it's Deke Squad, and I got a shirt, the Deke Squad shirt, but it's Jeff Ward. Yeah, we talked about that. So yeah, there are some videos out there. There's more coming. I've got Alan Dean Foster. We did a video interview, so that's going to be coming up. Wolf Kroger is going to be coming up for year 8. He is the production designer for Popeye. So if you love the 1980 feature film Popeye with Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall, I've been doing a ton of episodes with that this year. Had the cast, Paul Dooley has been on, Jules Pfeiffer, the legendary Jules Pfeiffer has been on. Electric Company, Paul Dooley created the Electric Company, so that got me on Electric Company theme. And you know, when I get on a theme, I like to do a ton of episodes. So I had the whole cast of the Electric Company on the show. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. wrapped up. I had a ton of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ABC was so nice in letting Comic Book Central jump in for some of the media interview because there's no convention, so everything's virtual. So we get to do Zoom interviews. So that was cool. So the entire cast and crew of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That's awesome. comicbookcentral.net and disneyindiana.com. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
You did.
To make sure. And if there aren't already links there will be links to these two websites in the show notes, of course. And Joe has been on the show repeatedly talking about the Abbott and Costello movies with me, and Scott apparently hasn't been on the show in a long time. I didn't realize it's been that long.
I think the last
he doesn't feel bad about it at all, does he? No chip on his shoulder.
was the last thing we talked about an Abbott and Costello movie?
Scott, you and I communicate so often off mic, you know, either on Skype or just chatting online. I lose track, man. I am so sorry, dude.
But
I
still,
love the
my
apes.
favorite
I
thing
love the apes. You guys
the
crushed
favorite
on
thing
the
that we
ape
did
Planet Apes.
was our journey through the Planet of the Apes movies.
Oh, I love that. Love that.
Well, we still have the TV series to get through on that.
and the Tim Burton movie.
No, we don't have to do the Tim Burton film. We're good there. We're good. But we do have the TV series. And you know what? We talked about this on the stream. I'm just going to reiterate for those of you who have not joined us in the Monster Kid Movie Club on the weekends. Next year, we will have the return of 1951 Downplace in some way, shape, or form. So that'll happen.
And you and I also have another movie we're talking about doing sometime soon as well.
Refresh my memory.
The one with the number, the 27th.
Do we get a tease?
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay. Man.
So much for a tease.
That's right. We'll be talking about the 27th day here in the near future.
When you put out 500 episodes, they do tend to run together.
Yeah. Give me some slack here, man.
Yeah, this should be episode 527. So the 27th
that'd
day.
Be cool.
That'd
be cool.
Kind of brilliant. Let's do that. Right on. Well, guys, I appreciate all of your support over the years for the show, you know, promoting and sharing posts and retweeting tweets and all that other stuff. I really appreciate it. I am proud to call you guys colleagues, and I love what you do. And I'm very happy that we finally got around to doing this movie together because I didn't want to tackle it without either one of you guys. So.
And everybody out there should really check out Derek's stream on Twitch on Tuesdays and Saturdays. He puts in a lot of work setting up the Astronomy Club and the Movie Club. Well worth your time, giving us great entertainment while we're all stuck at home. So,
and see, this is why I should have Scott on the show more often.
The amount of work that goes into it, because that's an all-day thing. every day you do it. But it is cool to get with like-minded, and like I said, it's sometimes the movies are treated with reverence, sometimes they're not treated with reverence so much. It's just kind of fun to kind of jump in and riff. I haven't had a chance to join you in recent weeks because, you know,
life, man,
producing podcasts, but the times I've been able to jump in, it's just nuts, man. And you just like, I think you had Gamera the one time I was on, and that movie is just so much fun to watch with a bunch of people. So, yeah, thank you for keeping us all entertained.
Sure.
And if this episode is going to come out this week, just let everybody know that Stuffed with Character is coming back to the stream.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Right on. Very cool.
Because one of the movies you're covering this week is They Saved Hitler's Brain.
You're not making a Hitler, are you?
No, we're not making a Hitler,
Okay,
but I do
good.
have an idea for a giveaway.
It's cool when those things pop in between the breaks of the movies and the little yeah, it's fun to watch those. Everybody's working so hard to entertain everybody else right now.
Well, you know, I'd be doing this stuff anyway, right? I mean, I think we talk about this all the time. Scott would be, you know, mouse ear deep in Disney and Star Wars stuff anyway. Joe, you're a huge comic book fan, and especially of the adaptations, and I love these monster movies. We'd be doing this stuff anyway. Right?
Right.
So to be able to share that with folks and have people enjoy what we do, I mean, that just means a lot.
Indeed.
All right, gang. I have some editing to do.
The clock is ticking.
The clock is ticking.
Not. Scott does not.
That's right. I don't have another show until 2 weeks from last Sunday.
Yeah, and I'm taking a week off, so this...
I'm taking a week off. I do a show every other week.
In just a few moments, these 5, American newspaperman, English bathing beauty, German scientist, Russian soldier, Chinese peasant girl, will be given the power to destroy every human being on Earth. What will they do? What will their governments force them to do? What would you do?
Each of the capsules has a diameter of lethal radiation, which is exactly 3,000 miles. There is then, in the combined capsules, more than enough power to wipe out all human life on your planet. People of Earth, I am an alien from outer space.
Don't say anything. I thought you'd never make it.
How long are we going to stay here, just hiding like hunted animals?
You don't think I like hiding, do you?
We've been here 10 days. We've managed to disagree on every one of them.
Actually, we've had all the disadvantages of marriage without any of the advantages.
Jonathan, stop.
But it's true.
It's time I went to bed.
Demand is hereby made for the immediate withdrawal of all American forces and civilians on land, sea, and air
to within the limits of continental United States on pain of total war.
Every human being alive will die unless science solves the riddle of the destruction capsules from outer space before the 27th day.
Answer me, Klaus. Where are they?
I've launched them.
Soon the world will be ours.
Clear the cobwebs off your VCR and get ready for America's first family of fright.
Thank goodness. Friendly face.
This time, Herman, Grandpa, and the rest of the monsters find themselves up to their fangs in hot water.
We've been accused of terrorizing a city. If we expect to clear our names, Herman, we're going to have to do something about it.
These monsters are no dummies. Or are they?
You mean that, us? Don't do anything I wouldn't do. You rascal.
A mad scientist is sending familiar-looking robots on a crime spree, and it's up to the monsters to stop him.
And the more time I thought we were innocent.
So join Herman and Grandpa as they go undercover on a mission of grave importance. It all adds up to a frightfully funny adventure and a monstrous good time.
Are we there yet?
I'll drink to that.
How
How are things in Transylvania?
Sid Caesar isn't the only one who gets a charge out of visiting 1313 Mockingbird Lane. The Munsters' Revenge.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of Monster Kid Radio. Thanks for checking us out and listening to the show and downloading it and maybe even giving us an honest review wherever it is you download podcasts and sharing it with your friends, retweeting tweets, just trying to grow the audience a little bit more and get more people involved with Monster Kid Radio because, the more the merrier, right? I appreciate having everybody involved with the show as well. Special thanks again to Scott, Joe, Mark, and Kenny for being part of the show and for everybody who contacted us with feedback about the show.
You can call and leave a voicemail for Monster Kid Radio at 503-810-5MKR. That's 503-810-5657.
That voicemail line is what I'm going to ask you to use regarding our upcoming episode 500. It's happening in 2 weeks. I've already gotten some voicemails from people calling in, letting us know what they like about the show, congratulations, that kind of thing. But what I'd really like to hear, I want to know what your favorite Monster Kid Radio moments have been over the past 500 episodes. Please feel free to call that in as a voicemail or send me an audio file and I'll play it during episode 500. Would love to get you involved in the show in that way. Really appreciate it. Our contact information is also over on our website at monsterkidradio.net, where you're going to find links to everything else that you heard about here on the show, including those Amazon affiliate links. So if you want to pick up anything that you've heard about here on the show, the Monster Go Home Blu-ray, any of the Ultraman stuff that Mark's talking about or going to talk about, anything that we talk about here on the show, you can find it by clicking on those links and you help the show out that way. And of course, you can find a link to our Patreon page where you can help the show out that way as well. Also on our website, you'll find links to our Twitter page, our Facebook page, and our Facebook group, and a mention of what's coming up next week. And this time I do know what's happening next week. In episode 499, we are having a new podcaster. He just launched his show, Record All Monsters. Robert Kelly is going to be on the show. And the show topic? Our top 3 kaiju films not featuring Godzilla or Gamera. I'm excited about this one. I've already got the cover art put together. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I've listened to the first episode of Robert Kelly's podcast. It's really good. It brings a different perspective to, of all things, King Kong. Something that you think may have already been talked about enough. No. Robert brings another perspective, and I really enjoyed that as well. Plus, he played a little game with his co-host. Go check it out. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes. So that's happening next week. And then, of course, after that is episode 500. Until next week or episode 500 or whenever you listen to the show next, Monster Kid Radio is a registered service mark of Monster Kid Radio LLC. All original content of Monster Kid Radio by Monster Kid Radio LLC is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 3.0 unported license except for Munsters theme. That is copyright 2020, The Graveyard Rockers. You can find it on their album Gravest Hits over at graveyardrockers.bandcamp.com. Go check it out and let them know that you heard about them here on Monster Kid Radio. My name's Derek M. Cook. I'll talk to everybody next week. Ciao.